Good evening. It's a military mission in North St. Louis. Heavily armored vehicles are rolling into town, and while they come in peace, there are all kinds of rumors about why they are here. News Channel 5's Casey Nolan is live somewhere in St. Charles County, where he got an up-close look at the military vehicles. Casey?
Yeah, Mike, in order to get that up-close look, we've agreed not to say exactly where in St. Charles County we are tonight and where these vehicles will be parked overnight. The Army doesn't want that information to be made public for security reasons, but we can tell you why they are here. Now, this may not be such a huge deal that these rigs are in town if not for the speculation that was coming via the internet today. St. Louis police first put out the word that people may see these armored security vehicles in their neighborhood, especially near the Army Reserve Armory in North St. Louis on Goodfellow. But that was about all the information they released. On the KSTK Facebook page in just a few hours, we had more than 100 people weighing in on what was going on, with comments ranging from people saying they would stop and salute if they saw the vehicles to others worried this was the beginning of martial law. Well, it turns out this is a group of military police in from Fort Meade, Maryland, and they are here to train members of the 354th MP Company here in St. Louis on how to drive these rigs, a military's driver's ed of sorts, if you will, on the highways and on city streets. They are not loaded, they are not armed in any way, but the Army says that does not mean they aren't dangerous.
That vehicle is over 32,000 pounds. If they see that vehicle, it is harmless, but they need to know to stay away from it. We don't mind you all looking at it, but please stay away. Every day while we're out riding around, we get hundreds of people taking pictures and filming us, and a lot of people even swerving in our lane.
In fact, they were on Interstate 44 today coming in from Fort Leonard Wood. They say they had one man trying to drive and take pictures at the same time. They had a kind of a last-minute unintended class in evasive maneuvers to avoid a wreck. So they're warning, be careful around what is an unusual sight in St. Louis, which you may see between now and next Friday when this training is complete. Live in St. Charles County, Casey Nolan, News Channel 5.
What we saw tonight is something you normally do not see over the skies of Los Angeles. We're going to take you live outside, give you an idea where all this was going on over downtown Los Angeles and in the area surrounding it. Special Military Operation Forces, in conjunction with the LAPD, conducting some military maneuvers that had many people wondering what is going on. Dive, 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 dive.
Military maneuvers by Special Operation Forces in full swing over the skies of Los Angeles. Our cameras were there when a Black Hawk helicopter and 4 OH-6s, or Little Birds, flew over the city. Take a look. This is the U.S. Bank building where they hovered for a while before flying to their next target.
1 o'clock, very low.
At one point, they made what appeared to be a drop-off at a park. Within seconds of landing, the helicopter was back in the air.
Oh, this is full push.
Then, while over the Staples Center, while the Lakers played inside, you can see someone on board sitting with his legs hanging off the side of the chopper. While the training is hush-hush, the LAPD, which is assisting the military, says this is routine training with the focus on urban environments. The staging area tonight, Dodger Stadium. Chief Warrant Officer David Duran was a U.S. Army aviator for 12 years. He now flies Black Hawk helicopters for the National Guard in California. He says what we're seeing tonight could be a dry run for a future mission.
They do a lot of mock-up training, but it's always best to get the closest terrain layout to what the objective is, wherever it could be, again, worldwide.
Duran says the military picks environments based on what they might be facing in the near future.
If it's a mountainous terrain, then they go to the mountains. If it's a desert terrain, they use the desert. If they're in coastal terrain, they use the coast. If it's an urban terrain, you know, whatever's needed.
When carrying out a mission, time on target is the focus. What that means is that every step of the mission must be conducted exactly as it's planned out. When lives are at stake, every second counts.
These guys are really the best that there are in the world.
And back out live over downtown Los Angeles. The operation continues at this hour, but we are keeping a safe distance as requested to not interfere with that. Now, we are going to see this maneuver continue for at least one more night. We are told that will definitely be happening, and many people wondering about the safety of this going on over an urban area. You saw some amazing maneuvers there, and we want to remind you these are highly trained professionals that are consistently training in what they do. Also, what we saw here tonight in in downtown Los Angeles has been seen in Miami and in Boston. So this sort of training goes on all over the U.S. Reporting live over downtown Los Angeles, I'm Juan Fernandez, KCAL 9 News.
All right, we've seen a lot of pictures coming out of the protests in Ferguson, police wearing riot gear, holding machine guns, and looking an awful lot like the U.S. military. And that's because today they are a lot like the military. Not only have they been trained using some of the same tactics, but they've also been authorized over the last few years to receive a surplus in military gear from the Pentagon. And that means local law enforcement agencies are using weapons found on the battlefields of South Asia and the Middle East. To discuss this a little bit more, I was joined earlier by John Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute. He's long studied and written about the idea of a rising police state in America. And I first asked him if the ongoing situation in Ferguson resembles that evolution.
Of course, yeah. Everything you're seeing from the military gear on the so-called policemen, who they look like military personnel, by the way. They do not look like policemen, to the military vehicles, the high-tech rifles, all the things you're using. Yeah, it's a culmination of a long process that began quite a while ago, but has really accelerated over the last 5 or 6 years, especially under President Obama for whatever. Actually, the handout from the Pentagon, the Department of Homeland Security of all this military gear slowed down a bit under George Bush, but it's really accelerated under President Obama for whatever reason.
And we're seeing pictures of police officers and events that many feel resemble a military operation in Iraq or Afghanistan. What brought us to this point where local police forces are resembling our military in the way that they look and their actions?
Well, first of all the equipment that's been given out basically free from the Pentagon, Department of Homeland Security. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security is giving out MRAPs to local police departments. They're mine-resistant armor protection vehicles that they use in Afghanistan. They're basically tanks. The other thing that I've talked to policemen who are concerned about this is the training. They're training policemen now very militarily in the police academies across the country, and actually SWAT teams are studying with military units. The other factor is that a lot of returning veterans from overseas are becoming police officers. So what you're getting is what the founding fathers, Madison, George Washington, all warned about a standing army. They say never do this because they experience what would be the tyranny of a standing army. Used to, when you approached a policeman in America, he had a brown outfit on and maybe a firearm. Sometimes they weren't armed. Now you're seeing them with high-tech rifles. You have the Department of Homeland Security arming themselves with hollow point bullets, which violate international law, but Social Security Administration buying hollow point bullets and passing them out to 41 locations across the United States. Things have definitely changed. We do have a standing army now. It's the local police working with federal agents. And in some of the cases we're involved where people's homes get raided, it's local police working with federal departments like the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, and they're all decked out in this military gear.
And do you think in some ways the way that they're dressing is actually causing this tension?
Yeah, as I show in my book, A Gumlet of Wolves, there's what they call the psychology of compliance. A number of studies show that once you put on that gear as a policeman and you're trained, you start acting like a military unit, like you're in a patrol. And unfortunately, what happens is the psychology changes, and a lot of these local policemen, when they're approaching a house for a SWAT team raid, it's like they're moving in on Al-Qaeda. That's what you have. That's what the studies show, and they've been confirmed recently by other studies that show the same thing.
Indeed, psychology has a lot to do with it. It's like a psychology of intimidation. Go ahead.
It's how they view the citizen. That's the key. Not as supposedly we're the masters and they're the servants. But you know, in Ferguson, they're telling people to back off 25 feet, get in this zone. They're violating their free speech rights. You have a right to walk up to a civil servant and say, sir, why are you doing this? Why are you here? They're pointing guns at people and chasing them away. That's not a policeman anymore. Again, that's the military, and that's what we're dealing with.
And indeed, a lot of people are vulnerable because they don't even know what their rights are in these situations. But, you know, how can we begin to really roll back this kind of militarization that we're seeing within these police forces? Is it even possible at this point, or are we too far gone?
It's possible, but again, it's going to take local citizens in their community getting down to their city councils and creating oversight, police oversight committees where when one of these SWAT team raids or the stuff you're seeing in Ferguson, they need to back them down. They need to be held accountable. Most police agencies operate basically any way they want. The local city councils and politicians just let them go. As I've written in a number of instances, I've seen local citizens get down at that local city council meeting, they get their signs, and they say, we're not moving until you change this thing. If not, you're going to see tyranny in this country. This is the face of the government today, what you're seeing in Ferguson, and it's only going to get worse if we don't back it off.
All right, John Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute, thanks for weighing in.
Thank you.
The Department of Homeland Security is apparently on a huge ammo buying spree. This is a just-placed order for more than 300,000 bullets, just the latest in a series of contracts that could add up to more than 1.5 billion rounds of ammo over the next 5 years. Critics say that's enough bullets to supply the equivalent of the Iraq War for 24 years, and they want to know why the DHS is doing it. Congressman Doug LaMalfa is one of the lawmakers demanding answers. The California Republican joins us now via Skype from Redding, California. Congressman, good to see you. So let's cut right to the chase, because some of the conspiracy theorists online say this is our government buying up bullets to use against us. Are you one of those who believes that?
Well, you know, that might be reaching a little far at this point. We've asked the questions of DHS to see, you know, what is the reasoning behind doing this. And when you talk to your constituents out there across my area and across the whole country, there's an extreme shortage of ammunition as it is now. So when they hear a story like this, they wonder, is this what's contributing to us not being able to get ammunition for our own sporting purposes or plinking or their self-protection, what have you? So we had a series of questions of DHS say, what is your procurement standards here? Why are you doing it this way? You know, we're hearing things like, well, it's over a 5-year period and we're buying it in bulk. So, okay, we might be able to appreciate that. But it is a heck of a lot of rounds of ammunition and for some very dubious sounding reasons. So,
but let me jump in and ask you, what is dubious about it? Because I think DHS is saying, look, it's, forgive the analogy, but it's sort of like Sam's Club. You know, and it's not that you need 24 rolls of paper towels that day. It's that you buy in bulk and it's cheaper and it lasts you longer and you don't have to deal with it as frequently again. Why is that not an acceptable answer?
It will probably be part of the answer that we get. You know, we're hearing these things, but again, when people are wondering why, for example, is the Social Security Administration getting almost 200,000 rounds of hollow point ammunition? What is it about our Social Security checks and administration that we have guys toting hollow point around with them? Now, if it's for target practice, there's an awful lot of hollow point going out to these various agencies that aren't appropriate for target practice because they're much more costly rounds. And so it's one thing to have, you know, the right people being able to go out and do the practice they need to do, but I think this is certainly worthy of a series of questions because a lot of people want to know. And in this time of sequester, where everything is a disaster because of the sequester, do they really have that kind of money to be spending on this amount of ammunition? Especially at a time, as part of the sequester, they're releasing many hardened criminals across the country and here in California as well.
You touched on, let me jump in, because you touched on, I asked you about the one conspiracy theory that's out there, and then you touched on the other theory that is out there in your letter, and you mentioned it just here as well, which is this is what you've written to the DHS. Quote, are these purchases being conducted in a manner that strategically denies the American people access to ammunition? Now, that is a serious question because there is a problem with access to ammunition, according to some local law enforcement agents in various pockets of the country. People have been complaining that they can't get ammo for some reason right now. What is your theory on that?
Again, these are questions we want the DHS to answer for us. They have acknowledged our letter. Myself and 14 other members of the House have put this letter together forward together. And so they've acknowledged that. They say they're working on it. And so we will give them the opportunity to process that and let us know what it is. So, but the fact still remains, all told, it's about 2 billion rounds out there. And yes, local law enforcement is having a hard time. They're having to buy from people they know that might have a stash of them or other means that really isn't very professional.
Yeah.
As well
can I ask you this? Because I don't know what the answer is, but I'm wondering, does DHS normally do this where they buy Because they say we may not need 1.6 billion or 1.2 billion in ammo, but it's up to. We want to sort of authorize up to that number of bullets over the next 5 years. As far as when we look back, it looks like for 2012 they placed a 1-year order for 148 million rounds. But now this year it's a 5-year order of 1.6 billion rounds. So is it unusual to do the 5-year deal?
It seems unusual, and I think it's sending a wrong message to the people of this nation when they can't buy their own ammunition. Our law enforcement can't seem to buy ammunition. We have the sequester and all these budget issues out there. It sounds like a horrendous amount. You know, hollow point ammunition is much more expensive than the type that you would be using for normal target practicing and like any of that. So there's a lot of things that are stirring around this. And then, honestly, there's a big mistrust by many, many people of their government these days. And so when they ask me to check in on this, I think it's my duty as an elected official, as a representative, to get to the bottom. You know, these are just questions that we think are appropriate, need to be asked, and they come from the people across the country that would like to know these things. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's people, you know, making fun of it a little bit, and you're using these words, paranoia. I think these are very appropriate for what we need to do.
Understood, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming on. You're not the only congressman who has written a letter. Tom Coburn, Senator Coburn, has written a letter as well. On February 4th, DHS responded to that and said, in part, look, we routinely do this, and said these strategic sourcing contracts help leverage the purchasing power of DHS to efficiently procure equipment and supplies at significantly lower costs. So our thanks to Congressman LaMalfa for his thoughts on it, and we will continue to follow it as he gets a response at some point from DHS.
Sadistic cops choke and tase a deaf man for being unresponsive. Then, the U.S. Army's fake city, a training ground for the military occupation of America. And Steve Pachenik reveals the structure for the military takeover already in place. All this and more on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Well, the U.S. Army has built a fake city in Virginia for what they say is to prepare their troops to occupy foreign countries. But what's striking is this 300-acre fake city looks more like your average American town. It cost $96 million to build in just 2 years, and it includes a sports stadium, bank, a school, and an underground subway. They say it's in order to train for unspecified future combat scenarios. But the fact that the subway carriages even carry the same logo as they do in Washington, D.C., this could suggest that the site was built to double both as a foreign city and a mock domestic town. The site also includes what they're calling a mosque, but it looks eerily familiar to a Christian church. So they're saying this is for foreign occupation. Please, come on. They are training for martial law, civil unrest. They have already been preparing for the gun owners and the Christians and anyone with an anti-government attitude to be trained to be seen as an insurrectionist. They're already training the military to see patriots as insurrectionists. The writing is on the wall. It is time to get real, folks. No matter how much the mainstream media and the Obama administration tries to convince you that they're just trying to take the guns because Sandy Hook, y'all. Please, the writing is on the wall. It is time for us to wake up. And that's why I would say it's an unprecedented move that Fox News is now carrying InfoWars articles covering the very fact that the DHS is arming themselves. They have up on foxnews.com Paul Joseph Watson's article about the Homeland Security purchasing those zombie hunter bullets. Now, the mainstream media, they've covered our material before, but they'll typically just take our material and then accredit it to their own writers after they do their own research. But what's really big here is it's Paul Joseph Watson's actual article credited back to InfoWars. It doesn't just have some vague reference to a, quote, conspiracy website. That's because this is a fact. This is an unprecedented purchase of ammunition that makes no sense. Fox News can see the writing on the wall, and this is facts. Anyone can go look that up on the Fed BizOps site, something where they're looking for FEMA trailers. That's all there. It's fact. Just go look it up like we do. Do you really think, though, that a government that's, they have no problem killing innocent children overseas or using chemical weapons to destroy an entire country and the nation's genetic makeup of their children's children, do you really think that they're not going to turn on you, or they're going to have some problem offing you and getting rid of you? Absolutely not. You're the zombies. That's why they need the zombie hunter bullets. It's probably funny to them.